Ankalaev versus Pereira is getting personal. And this kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I never felt that these two even wanted to fight each other. They never asked for the fight. Nobody challenged the other one. There wasn't a number one contendership match. Just for example, a lot of the things, press conference, a mean message on social media, like none of these things happened. It felt as though it was just the right thing to do. Pereira was the champion for so long that with a defeat, he defaults down to number one contender. And as a number one contender, he gets to fight for the belt against the guy who's holding the belt, who happens to be Ankalaev. I mean, it kind of felt like that. Not to mention, that story generally works. I haven't seen anything amiss at this point. I just remember how hard it was to get those two to the cage the first time. I remember Roundtree getting pulled off 5 or 6 beautiful wins, 5 or 6 beautiful finishes, but they weren't on pay-per-view. Right? It was almost like Raw versus SmackDown. There were 2 good products, but they were different products. And if you're going to fight for the Raw championship, you've got to have done some work on Raw and not get drawn over from SmackDown. Now, once Khalil got in there, we found out he was exactly the guy for the job. I'm just suggesting for you, Ankalaev was available then. In fact, they went out of their way to make Ankalaev unavailable by putting him with Rachik just to set up the storyline so that Roundtree did draw in to Pereira. So for a fight that initially was very hard to make, the second fight that nobody asked for was really easy to make. But what are we doing here? And how have things heated up so tremendously? Now, let me tell you the problem with this fight all of a sudden getting so much attention and having so much heat on it. If we're going to a rematch because that's what the playbook says, then if Pereira wins, we must go to the rubber match because that too is what the playbook says. Now, getting to the rubber match is going to be pretty easy to do if Pereira gets his hand raised. Like, these two have decided that they don't like each other. In fact, allow me to rephrase. It turns out these two don't like each other. They have decided to let us in on that fact. I mean, there was greasing allegations. Ankalaev said that he told his corner after the very first round, this guy's too slippery. He's slippery everywhere. I think that he's greased. And that is what took him away from a wrestling-heavy offense, not some kind of chivalry of wanting to go out and outstrike the decorated striker. Well, that's very dirty. That's a very dirty line. No matter how Ankalaev meant it, it's a very dirty line because that is against the rules. And Ankalaev actually used this very dirty line as a gentleman. He went as far as to say, I'm not upset and I'm not complaining. I'll just tell you an interaction that I had with my cornerman. And I told my cornerman, he's greased, he's slippery everywhere. Those are quotes. But that's a hell of an accusation to make. It doesn't just go against Pereira, who nobody's ever said that about before. It would also go against cornermen who placed it there. It would go against a referee who inspected him and in this case would have missed it. It's one hell of a claim to say that your opponent was greasing. It is a smaller claim if victory is yours. But imagine it wasn't. Imagine he lost the fight and came out and said, that guy greased. Then they got something that went down at the PI. And the story of the PI looks something like this. Pereira's there. Pereira's working out. And I know that building. So maybe in my mind's eye, I'm seeing this a little bit clearer than you guys can. But if you could just picture an open room, that's the PI. You go up some stairs into an open room. Within this open room, there's some windows. Inside of those windows, there's some cardio equipment, like treadmills and stair steppers. There's some weightlifting equipment, like bench presses and dumbbells. There's a ring For the people that like to do their workouts in more of a boxing environment, there's even an octagon setup for those of you that like to have the exact mechanism that you're going to compete in for training purposes. That is the PI. And the way the story goes is that Pereira comes up, I imagine, these stairs, looks through the glass doors, sees that Alex Pereira and his team are already in there, deep into a sweat, deep into a workout, and says, hey, let's wait. They got here first. Let's wait till they're done. You've only got two options in Ankalaev's shoes at that moment. You walk through the door, or you don't walk through the door. I just think that Ankalaev handled it like a gentleman. And the champion doesn't have to wait. That's true. If the champion came in and there was some kind of push or pull about who's staying, who's going, it's not going to turn down to whose time's written down first or even who showed up first. The champion will get his way. It was a nice gesture by Ankalaev. It was a sportsmanlike. It was the right move. But Ankalaev doesn't see it that way. Ankalaev doesn't see it the way Uncle Chael does, which is that Ankalaev had grace and poise. Ankalaev is upset at the way the story is being told. He thinks that the story makes him look scared and makes it look as though he ran. Which could be a cultural thing. I will just tell you, here in the US, it's polite what he did. But he is now saying, given the opportunity to go back in time to that very moment, that he would not have turned and walked away, that he would have entered the PI. And I don't get it. Entered and done what? Said hello, ignored him, started your workout, told him his workout's over. That's not going to go well. Ankalaev as champion, there is a certain prestige that is shown to champion, but it is not enough to exclude somebody else doing the same thing for the same purpose, which is their petition in a title fight opposite you. So the apology from Ankalaev was a bigger deal than me. I thought that Ankalaev looked good here. If somebody's right in every situation, and that means somebody's wrong in every situation, I think that Ankalaev handled it appropriately. My problem, the weak part of my argument, is Ankalaev coming out and saying, well, I wanted to have done it again. I would have done it the other way. I would have gone into the room. And Pereira is insistent that he do. But what happens then? They argue, they bicker, they mean mug one another. Maybe they say something, get somebody to come in and separate them. I just don't fully get it. But I don't have to get it. I just need to know that it happened, and I need to relay it to you, because, see, that's two things. That's two things in 1 week. The 1 week that we need for the fight that we never asked for. And as this new fight does start to build for reasons that I think are pretty small, it does lend to the idea that if Pereira was to win, now all of a sudden a rubber match has a whole lot more on it than the rematch does. The rubber match has more on it than the rematch does, than the initial match does. And it's not what I want. I want things to cool down. I want them to have their good night of business. I want people that truly like and appreciate martial arts to tune in. I want people that truly like and respect the history of the light heavyweight division. I want to say who the best in the world is. I want them to tune in for those purity of reasons. Because what I want immediately following this contest, win, lose, or draw, I want Alex Pereira to be a heavyweight. And I know I'm close. He wants to be a heavyweight. He has not done any media leading up to this fight that doesn't involve how difficult it is to make 205 pounds and how little he enjoys making 205 pounds. Alex Pereira, win or lose, Chael's request, after this match, becomes a heavyweight.